and welcome back to the Whatnauts review show, number 319. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how are you? How's your week been?
It's been good. I tried to fight for truth, justice, and the American way today.
Good for you. Good for you. Not to get ahead of ourselves a little bit, but we are calling an audible a little bit here for our podcast. We had originally planned to talk about Poker Face on this episode, the first season and a half. But we decided to punt that down the road a little bit because season 2 is halfway, more than halfway done.
This is what happened. I decide, you know what? There's going to be a new season of Poker Face. I loved season 1. Kyle never watched it. Kyle would love it. Let's watch these 2 seasons of Poker Face. And I go to Peacock and I see 5 episodes listed. And season 1 was 10 episodes. And I'd heard on some pop culture podcasts that the season wasn't all coming out at once. And my brain has been so trained by years of COVID and strikes and wildfires and all of these things to expect very long delays. And I thought, they probably divided this into 2 sub-seasons of 5 episodes each. And they put out these first 5 just to get it in under the wire before Emmy consideration. And then that way, they've also bought themselves 2 years where this season is eligible and the 2 sets of guest stars aren't eating each other's votes for Emmy guest star awards. No, they had a couple episode premiere and have been releasing episodes every week.
Yeah,
this is a 12 episode season and all of it will be out. It's coming out every week and it's going to be done soon. So I'm like, well, that's on me for just looking at Peacock and surmising and never actually Googling what is the Poker Face season 2 release schedule.
See, I had assumed that after we watched those first 5 episodes, I actually watched through episode 7 just in case, but I figured we'd cover basically the second half of season 2 on a reactor core eventually down the road. But it's a little more complicated when we split things up like that. And so it just makes sense to let's just wait.
I think as a rule going forward, I don't want to do parts of anything anywhere. Let's talk about whole things. Unless this is a case where there is season 1, season something, part something comes out in May, and the second half comes out in January, where there is a big gap, an intentional gap of months and months and months in between 2 halves.
Remember when they
something.
used to do that for television shows?
It happened a lot, yes. Yeah. It still happens. Of course, I hope we're towards the end of there being larger things like pandemics and strikes interrupting production cycles.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about whole, complete things all in single episodes on single podcast feeds, please.
Indeed. With that in mind, we ended up switching things up. And for this episode, instead, we are going to be talking about Superman the movie. Of course, there is a new Superman movie coming out in a couple weeks down the road. So we thought, hey, might as well get this one under our belt. I'm actually going to be out in St. Louis visiting you when that movie releases. So we will get to go see it in James Gunn's hometown. Which should be a lot of fun. But Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong. You hadn't seen this one. This the Superman, the movie, Richard Donner, Christopher Reeves. You haven't watched this one?
No, I had never seen a single Reeve. I knew him. I knew the iconography of him for sure.
Yeah.
But for one reason or another, I think as soon as I started this show, I'm like, this would be a great episode of this show. And now 7 years in, finally, we are getting to Superman the movie.
It's a good one. I'm glad we got to do this. So if you guys did not know, each and every episode here on the review show, we have a different movie or TV show, anime, manga, comic, what have you. We read it, we watch it, we come back here and discuss it. So now that we have watched Superman the movie, which came out in 1978, Star Wars A New Hope came out the year before. Mobile Suit Gundam came out the year after. It's a big time for sci-fi superhero nerd shit.
We're just 1 month past the Star Wars holiday special.
Right, yeah, indeed. Yeah, now that we have watched, I've seen this one before. I've seen all of the Richard Donner, Christopher Reeves ones. I think they did like 4 of them at least.
There's 4 movies starring Christopher Reeve as Superman. Donner directed the first one and most of the second one, and had a dispute with the producers and the studio and got it taken away from him, and then came back and did a director's cut. So he's directed like 1.75 of the 4 Supermen.
Yeah. And we did not watch any kind of like extended cut or director's cut. I just watched the one that was on HBO Max, which I think is just the regular theatrical one that's on the air. But yeah, I really enjoy these. I think they got some issues, but I still have a great time watching them.
Yes.
And I think there's a scene in particular in this that everyone talks about that I think is just incredible. So I am excited to talk about this one. But Melissa, since this was your first time, what did you think? What were you expecting? Because I know you had heard that you've like absorbed pop culture of this stuff.
I know. Yes, I knew a handful of things about it. I knew Zod trapped in the spinning rings.
Yeah.
I knew Marlon Brando playing Space Dad. I knew bits and pieces. This movie has major structural issues with tone and pace and sense of humor in some moments. It takes a long time to get to the good stuff, but the good stuff is so truly amazing. You cheer, you clap, you almost weep from the sheer beauty of it.
Yeah.
It really works when it works.
It's good fun. I would agree with that 100%. Yeah, I think from Christopher Reeve's performance, which is incredible, that is, I think, just completely stellar.
From second one, it takes no time at all for you to immediately so deeply love that man.
Right, just be like, oh, he nailed it immediately. You're like, he's got it. I really love this iteration of Lois Lane.
Yes.
I like her a lot. She is often in the comics depicted as this kind of not necessarily hot-headed, but this woman who kind of puts herself out there, sometimes in situations of danger, because she wants to get the story, right? And I think sometimes in the comics that can almost make her this kind of seemingly invincible character. But I like that she's just a normal person here, misspelling things and being like, hey, that's not how you spell that. And she's just like, damn it. Like, right. Like, I don't see that side of her as much in the comics. And I like that. But she also still has that like real go-getter attitude in this for sure. The plot that Lex Luthor comes up with is ridiculous. I completely forgot that Ned Beatty was in here. He's an interesting role. I'm sure you've heard
time
people
this month. We've had to talk about a bumbling Ned Beatty. Doing this in the pilot episode of Murder, She Wrote.
Right, yeah. I'm sure you've heard references to the Miss Tessmacher, him screaming that out every 5 seconds. But yeah, it has great moments here in the air that I think really outshine a lot of the things that you could say, like, oh, these are the lower moments, or there's some issues with your. I think you just kind of forget about them and be like, man, did you remember that one scene when he flew off and then he's over here, he's back there? Man, incredible,
Yes.
right? So good.
I mean it. When Lois is dangling from that helicopter, and I think dangling is my favorite type of situation wherein a superhero needs to rescue somebody. I love when somebody's just got like one hand hanging on to something. That's
Yeah,
the best kind.
it's called
Uh,
classic.
when you see Clark Kent leave the building and the music starts up and he turns around and he goes to find somewhere to change, you do start. I at least, I'm like pounding my fists on my thighs. I'm cheering. I'm waving my fists in the air.
Ooh, Lottie
It
coming.
this gets to me on a core like deep childhood level.
Yeah.
This I don't think I've felt like this since I was like 3 years old watching Aladdin for the first time when Aladdin and Jasmine go flying. Like that's the nearest equivalent I've ever had in my life to the feelings elicited by this film. It is
Yeah.
such a sense of magic to it. I wasn't expecting it to be so romantic. I wasn't expecting it to be so horny.
Mm-hmm. Superman and Lois. Getting at it.
Horny in a way that's like fun for adults, but does not ruin the time for a small child.
Right. Yeah.
Is not too excessive.
Yeah. You mentioned that it has this childlike wonder both to the world that it inhabits, but also the way they present it. I think they just do a really good job with this one. So if you are looking for a Superman movie to watch to get you inspired before James Gunn's new Superman movie coming out this year in just a couple weeks, you can't go wrong with this one here. It'll be a good time, and it's easily available on Max.
Yes.
So
yes.
Good stuff. Good stuff indeed. Any other kind of spoiler-free stuff that you want to mention about this?
So I have a brother who's much older than I am, and this was the first movie he ever went to go see in a theater.
Mm.
And this movie came out when he was just shy of being 2. So he was very, very small. Smaller than most kids when they go to see their first movie. My dad says he fell asleep in the car on the drive there. He's still asleep when they get him out of his car seat and they carry him into the theater and they put him down in the seat. And it's when the John Williams score kicks in the opening credits that he wakes up. Just Gene Hackman's name flying at him. And he's like, he was wide-eyed. He was stunned. He did not know that this was a thing on Earth that he could experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Good stuff. Cool. Well, with that, we will take a quick break for some housekeeping. And then when we come back, we will dive into this movie a little bit deeper, get into some spoilers and stuff like that. So we will be right back. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast. We hope you're enjoying it. If you didn't know, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. But none of this is possible without your support. Head over to patreon.com/thewhatnauts and you can get access to over 40 hours of exclusive content, including our Patreon first podcast, The Pilots Club, when you sign up at our $3 tier. Of course, there is a free version of the Pilots Club available, but episodes are exclusive to our Patreon for 2 years before they hit the free feeds. If you're interested in buying merch, we have shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more for sale over at thewhatnauts.com/store. Another great way to help us out is by subscribing and leaving a nice rating and review on your podcasting app of choice. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for video versions of the show, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, you can always find out more information about the shows we make on our website, thewhatnauts.com. All right, we are back. Once again, a big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We love you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It means a ton. Let's see. Right here on the review show, last episode we got to cover volumes 1 through 3 of Faith, which is, it's been some time since we had dipped our toes into the Valiant Comics universe. We've done a few of their characters, but we got to read the first 3 volumes of Faith, a woman who's a bigger woman that is a superhero. She's kind of like a mutant, like the X-Men equivalent, and has some interesting powers. It was a real flashback to like 2012, 2014 Tumblr era
Yes.
that I think was a lot of fun.
Very specifically set in that time period, if that's something you're nostalgic for.
Yeah, indeed. So go check that out. We had a good time with that one. Let's see. We have over on the Captain's Log. I just mentioned that I was going to go visit Melissa. That is for episode 300 of the Captain's Log, which is coming up real soon here. But over there, Melissa, you gave me a big rundown of things we could do, places we could eat, all that kind of stuff. So if you are also interested in going to St. Louis sometime, this would be a good way to find out what the city has to offer.
Right. We're a lot more than just the Arch and Cardinals baseball and Bushweiser beer. Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch beer. See?
Yeah.
I can't even say the name. That's how
It's all the
insignificant
same.
it is in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. So go check that out on the Captain's Log. We also have a big spoiler cast for Mission Impossible 8, The Final Reckoning. We had a blast recording that one. The movie has some incredible stunts, some weird choices, but man, we had a good time.
To this.
Yeah.
Similar to Superman, where you're like, parts of this are absolute magic, but why is it structured like this?
Over on the Pilots Club, we just released our episode on Murder, She Wrote for our Patreon supporters. You guys can go check that one out if you are at the $3 tier and above. And then over on the free feed, we just released our episode on Cheers, which we released it slightly early because the actor George Wendt, who played Norm, passed away. We did not plan that would be the one that we would be releasing.
We knew the time of his death. We visited a fortune teller.
Yeah.
Also on Cheers. Also on Cheers, John Ratzenberger. Don't remember if he's actually in the pilot episode. John Ratzenberger, did you spot him in Superman?
I don't remember who's who. To be honest, I don't know who John Ratzenberger is.
He's the guy who sounds like half of all Pixar characters. John Ratzenberger, little mustache.
Okay, yeah. I gotcha. Yeah, so that is over there. Actually, my dad called me this week, or told me when I call my parents every week, but he said that time we took a trip to Boston, where Captain's Log listeners will know I forgot my Goku action figure. In that same trip, we actually visited the bar. He was like, I don't know if you would remember this, because I don't know if going to a bar at that age would really impress on you, but we stopped by. I think my parents had a drink and got some merch, and then like we moved on. But apparently I've been there. I've been at the bar, the Cheers bar.
There are a number of Cheers bars. I went to a Cheers bar once in like an airport. And I remember trying to eat a whole red onion, and my parents are like, "You're a child. What do you want with a red onion for?"
Gosh darn it, Mom! Don't question me. So yeah, go check out the Pilots Club. But yeah, the last little bit of housekeeping I will say is that for our Patreon supporters, you guys have access to our exclusive RSS feeds. I've been mentioning those in recent weeks because I've been putting all our back catalog up for all of them. All of the review show, the Captain's Log, and the Reactor Core are now finally up there. They're up to date. They have our entire back catalog. So if you want to get your episodes early that way, That is the easiest way to do that. So yeah, that is our housekeeping stuff. So without further ado, let's get into some spoilers for Superman the movie.
I forgot the spoiler noise was different.
Yeah, I'm using one of our old crossplay jingles that I made. And then on screen, there's like a weird effect that comes on for a little small second. But that's it. Here we are. Spoilers.
Did you know Superman is Clark Kent?
What? No.
I know. You wouldn't guess it because Clark Kent is so meek and wears glasses.
Right. He's a bumbling idiot. He says swell.
My favorite thing about Superman the Man is how often during a rescue mission, during a crime stop, he says hello and goodbye.
Yeah. He's just a polite country boy.
Calls everyone miss, ma'am, sir. It's very, very charming.
Yeah. It's a good time. Yeah, I think that's where we have to start. We have to start with Christopher Reeves here, because that I think by far is just the standout of this entire film. His performance here is incredible. The famous scene I was talking about is after they go flying, right, and he flies away and loops around the building, and not 2 seconds later the camera doesn't cut. It just pans over. It's a one shot. We start to hear him knocking on Lois's door, and then it's Clark Kent in his suit. His hair is a little different, right? Just how they do that transition so fast. It is magic.
Yes.
it is so good. And then to see when she's just in this trance of like, I just flew with Superman and I think I'm in love. And she's like, he at one moment takes off the glasses and like straightens up, and it's like, that's it. Nailed it. It's so good. Which is not new.
How they did. No. I'll say I have been told. I have seen like brief clips out of context in a larger video essay or pop culture news piece talking about recent Superman. The physical transformation that Christopher Reeve performs to display the difference between Clark Kent and Superman and how it justifies everybody around him having no idea they're the same person. I've been told this. But it's another thing to really watch it unfold in front of your eyes in continuity. Yeah. It is very skillful work.
It really is. Because when he's Clark Kent, you don't really realize it, but he's like slightly hunched over. He's like putting his shoulders up a little bit to make it seem like he's smaller. His voice is slightly higher. Right, and he's like his personality is different. He's stumbling over his words a little bit there. He's just extra polite.
The piece de resistance is that he's always carrying too many things. Yeah. Nothing will knock a character down a few pegs in terms of coolness than by making them have their hands full. He always has his coat and a hat and a briefcase and a newspaper and
maybe
coffee.
A mug. Yeah.
So much stuff. And when he's first introduced, you're going through the Daily Planet offices. You see Lois walk into Perry White's office, and the camera pans over, not even as an official reveal. It's just like, oh yeah, and this guy's also here, and that's Clark Kent. Like he isn't even introduced with anything of importance.
Right.
It's like he might as well just be an empty chair.
Yeah, just
dismissed
immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, when he like straightens up and he like puts his chest out and his neck up, you're just like, man, it's just kind of wild how he does all of that.
This
this
movie makes you want to fix your posture.
On and off, right? Yeah. I have my lumbar pillow behind me on my chair, so I'm halfway there, right?
When I was a little kid, you two, because we're the same age, before I knew I knew Superman. I knew what he looked like. He's from Krypton. He dates Lois Lane. I knew like the 5 basic things about Superman that any child knows, even if they've never really seen a Superman. Live they just live on Earth in the early 90s.
Yeah.
But I remember how everyone was devastated when Christopher Reeve had that accident. That
Yeah.
stands out in my mind as like close to the death of Princess Diana.
Yeah. I remember it happening. I remember being too young to like truly understand
Yes.
everything, but it stood out. Um, and I have not seen the documentary that they released
Mm.
on him, but man, even just watching the trailer of that is
Oh,
just gets
I'll
you so
bet.
emotional and makes me tear up. And to like in that same scene when he's like, you'll always have a friend or something like that. Like I just did, man, I just get so emotional. It's just like,
He's a
he
he's a
embodied this
friend.
character perfectly.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
We got very lucky.
yeah, yeah. Because not every
Something
actor that has portrayed Superman turned out that way. Um,
mm,
but yeah, man, just a blast to watch on screen.
right. There's many actors who have played super heroic characters who do embody the role, and they are like
Oh yeah.
good upstanding people, and you're like, "Ah, how I love seeing that person. How wonderful for them." But there is a unique character to Christopher Reeve. I think even before this tragic accident that then cast his life in a very different light. This was
Hmm.
really something special, truly miraculous.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Other performances that you want to mention? Um, did Perry White stand out? How about Lex Luthor?
Oh, I was surprised that Lex Luthor just seems like a pre-existing general purpose madman with very little to do with Superman. For I have average Superman knowledge. This was my first time seeing this. I've never seen the Routh one. I've like I've seen some things. We've read some graphic novels. I'm no expert. I know less than you, but more than the average person probably. I mostly know Lex Luthor as somebody who is reactionary to Superman. Would you say that's true? Then maybe he is a
Yes.
sinister businessman to begin with, but he takes on a supervillain. Uh, he truly goes to the next level once Superman enters the picture. And
Yeah.
this Lex Luthor, I wouldn't even say he's a sinister businessman. He is truly like, no, that's a supervillain. He has a lair already, not just a cool office, but like a lair. He lives, him and Miss Taskmacher and Otis. He has henchmen. They live in like an abandoned part of Grand Central Station that he's flooded and turned the building into a pool, and he's stolen stuff, and it's just full of junk, and he's always got these schemes already before he's even heard of the concept of a Superman. This is not where I would have expected the series to find him. I was expecting
Yeah.
local businessman who maybe takes things a little too far, Lex Luthor. Not this. This feels like something from Batman.
Yes. Yeah. I
Okay,
would
I'm happy
agree.
you understand.
It's an interesting thing because Lex Luthor being this, big billionaire businessman, he almost feels like a Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk kind of character. But then here, I don't want to say it's the opposite, but in what you would think is like, oh, he's in his like penthouse suite at the top of the highest skyscraper of
Yes.
he's now underground, like buried beneath. It's almost the opposite of of what you know of him, right? Here he is this
Yes.
kind of larger than life madman, like you say. He refers to himself as a criminal mastermind, right? That's what he does. Like, he's not like, no, I'm a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a criminal mastermind here. And so, yeah, having this weird, strange underground layer feels very different for what Lex Luthor has become known as.
Yes, you think of him as being a higher class villain, somebody of money, somebody of means, somebody of power. And this layer is rad. It does take a certain amount of ingenuity and pull to be able to have that, but it feels almost scrappy how it is, like it's hidden, it's an abandoned part of another building. It's just a bunch of random stuff that he
Yeah.
stole.
Yeah, it's just it's not what you would expect. And then the plot he comes up with, which is the like the thing that is the culmination of the movie, which you don't even get to for the first hour and 40 minutes. We know he's
Yes.
up to some real estate scheme, but we don't find out what that is for an hour and 40 minutes into this like 2 hour and 20-minute movie. And it is this like, yeah, I'm going to destroy all of California to basically build my new beachfront property. I've been buying up all this land out in the desert, and when I set California off into the ocean,
The coast. He's gonna detonate a bomb in the San Andreas Fault, and the
right.
whole, like, the coast of California is, he believes, going to break off and float away into the sea. And so now inland California will be the new coast, and
Yes.
it'll become as populated and as expensive as the coast.
Yeah, and he owns it all, right? Except for Otis, who has Otis Berg, or might not.
This is a very different flavor than what I expected. This is Bond villain territory,
Mm, yeah.
and it has nothing to do with Superman. It doesn't feel like it really belongs here. The concept of there's a bomb on either side of the country, and this is a test of Superman's speed and his strength and his nature, where he doesn't want to let anybody down and he wants to be able to save everybody. That fits, but like real estate scheming and like geography based crime,
Yeah.
it feels like it doesn't feel
It's silly.
specifically tied to the Superman lore. It felt like it could have been lifted up and put anywhere else.
Yeah, I'm wondering, because I'm not sure if this is their actual thought process, but I'm wondering if they thought making him an actual businessman was just kind of boring and bland, but they also didn't necessarily have the budget to do a like, let's do a giant monster or a giant robot or it right some
Giant spider.
right. Yeah.
Superman's classic foe, giant spider.
Yeah. Um, you've now reminded me of that story and all of that stuff, that Kevin Smith story. But yeah, I'm wondering if they thought like it would be just that much more bland if he was like a normal business guy. So if he has a little bit of like the 60s Batman villain liar with like a James Bond kind of style scheme, then maybe that, because like Superman, as much as he is in Metropolis, right, he cares about everyone. Even in the trailer of the new James Gunn Superman, right, he supposedly went and stopped some kind of war overseas, right? So he cares about all people, and of course he would go after the missiles, even if they were all the way in California, right? So yeah, it fits in that sense, but yeah, it just, that seems like a bigger scale of like, oh yes, this is something that Superman would have to take care of, versus like, I don't know if Batman could really get there on time, or something, right?
Yeah.
He'd be stuck in traffic somewhere in Gotham, right? Like he
Right. The speed and vastness alone makes it feel designed for Superman. Everything else feels like kind of off the shelf general purpose villainy that you could
right.
plug into a variety of heroic titles.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always struck people as a weird one that it is real estate, and it is something that comes up again down the road in other Superman movies in both a sincere and joking way too. It's like, oh, what, a real estate scheme? That's what this is? Like, huh? Um, so yeah, it's just kind of fascinating, but you almost forget that that's what the scheme is in like once you start seeing, oh, the bomb has struck, and right, like the rocks are falling, the dam has broken, Lois Lane dies, he has to reverse time and do all it. There's just this grand scale of what is happening and what he's trying to do to stop it and fix it, that I kind of don't mind that this is some dumb
Yeah.
little you know some dumb scheme.
It gets the job done, and it is
Yeah,
a nice escalation to what we've seen him do previously. The night where he just goes and gets a bunch of superhero errands done, foiling robbers, saving Lois from a helicopter, which is a big stunt. It is
yeah,
very dramatic, but it is two people. I think it's her and a pilot who
yeah,
are really in danger. It's relatively small scale for being a dangling helicopter rescue. He saves a cat from a tree. He just stops burglars. Like it's
right.
relatively low level stuff, but not in a way that feels disappointing. So you're like, it's Superman and he's finally doing the Superman thing.
Yeah, which I kind of want to circle back to the childlike nature of this film here, or not nature. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but the way that people react when they see him. Um, I think there's a lot less of a like, what the heck, than you would expect. Like that kind of reaction, like confusion or like just a
Mhm.
bewilderment at what you just saw. And it is this like cheering, like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that guy. They don't
And,
even know him exactly. They've
right.
seen his
And if they don't,
picture in the paper maybe once, right?
yeah. Nobody except for the newspapers appears to be suspicious of him or investigating him that closely.
Yeah,
There are folks who are like, well, I just can't believe it.
yeah.
And then think no further. They're not like,
He's a
so I
menace.
will dig into this hoax, this lie. Newspapers alone are suspicious of Superman. The public, confounded as they are, do love him.
Yeah, and it like it's the way they embrace him immediately without question is just kind of this childlike, like it almost seems surreal. It's like that's not really how people would react in a situation like that. If we actually saw something happen like that in real life, there the reaction would be much different. But that kind of happens throughout the entirety of the film. From the very start of the movie, which starts out with the Superman comics, and they're flipping the pages, right, of the actual like it's a fairy tale kind of like thing that creates, right? When he's running by the train, which is just this goofy effect. The only person that notices him is this kid, right? It's a small
Mm.
kid, and the parents, even though the kid is like, look, he's right outside, they're kind of dismissive. It's like the stories that you see where it's like, oh yeah, the adults can't see magic because they've grown up, but the younger kids
Mhm.
can,
Right.
right? They're just not looking up. And it's
And
almost like that.
that's the tagline of the new movie. Look up.
Yeah.
There he is, both in a literal sense of physical space, he's in the sky, and Let's have some optimism, folks. That's what
Yeah.
Superman stands for. There's got to be a reason why Superman has persisted for 80 years. I think he's something we need. There's a scene in the director's cut that reveals that that little girl is a young Lois,
Interesting.
which feeds into perhaps her not letting herself believe that Superman and Clark Kent are the same guy, because we have the model of her parents being like, now that's just silly. Why would you believe that? That's not
Right.
real.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just this idea that like what you saw was not a real thing. So how can this
Mm.
Superman exist? Right. Like
Yeah,
that's not a real thing. Yeah. No.
and we're in this unique, I don't want to say unique space and time. We're just at a time in the past that is not the way time is now. Where now, if something like this happened, if Superman saved Lois Lane from the helicopter, I say this like it's the helicopter's fault. It isn't. I think the helicopter is innocent, and I hope it led a good long life after that. If that had happened, the news would be everywhere. Everybody would know. Whereas in this world, it doesn't seem like there's any TV cameras that caught Superman. People have to wait for the newspapers to tell about him the next morning.
Right.
So Superman goes from heroic act to heroic act, and we keep seeing people not believing. Like like news has not reached them. There's a flying guy in a cape who's been saving people in Metropolis tonight. It's like the fifth person's like, no way, that didn't happen, because they have not been able to know about the previous 4 encounters.
Right. Yeah. Um, what did the Californians think, right? when this guy just shows
Yeah,
up, did
did
that
news
make
reach
their
California from Metropolis? Not clear.
right? Yeah, yeah. Um, I have to briefly mention Pa Kent and his death
Yeah.
scene. I think this is um it's a good scene. I like it a lot. I like it for its subtlety. I don't think it's necessarily the most emotionally, like it's not a big gut punch per se, but it does the job, and I think it does the job better than the Man of Steel movie.
Mm.
I did not like how Pa Kent died in that one because Superman had the ability to save him. He had the super speed, the super strength. Like he had the means to do that, to go save him and get back before anyone saw. And this one, there's literally nothing he could have done. He does not have the powers to stop a heart attack. And that is just like, yes, that is part of what makes his relationship to Pa Kent so great, is that he is really affected by this death of like, I couldn't do anything. I was literally powerless. And they don't really explore that in this movie, but like I said, it's just kind of subtle. It's there if you think about it, but
Yes.
yeah,
You know,
good stuff.
it's Lex Luthor gives him what should be an impossible demand. There's 2 bombs on either side of the country. You can't do them both. You have to pick. And much like James T. Kirk reprogramming the Kobayashi Maru, Superman just flies around the earth so many times so fast that he goes back in time and he can do both.
Yeah.
I feel like the threat of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman is a little less internal and a little less external. What will people think of you? How will people react to you? And if I remember correctly, Pa Kent is like, don't risk coming to save me. That's so dangerous for you. If all these people around you see that, they're going to treat you as something strange or dangerous. Something bad could happen to you, or that is an expectation that you are never going to live up. If they see you save me from a tornado, are you ever done saving people from tornadoes? And I get that it can be less emotionally affecting compared to this, but I feel like that specific death makes thematic sense with what those 2 movies are specifically about.
I will say yes, it makes sense thematically of what those two movies were about and that take on the universe, because it is a much more cynical, darker take. Um, but that is what I don't like about that whole take, is that it is. I mean, to be clear, Superman is not really a metaphor for like a trans identity, for example, but
Mm,
something like a detail like this, where they tell him and they teach him to hide who you truly are because people won't
mm.
accept you. I get why someone might do it even in today's world, but I don't like that. Right. I like them being like,
Ah,
no, you be who you are, no matter what that is. You always do the right thing. Um, and I think that is more hopeful. That is more what Superman is about. He is often compared to an immigrant story, right? Like you represent your culture. You came from this other world here, and I think going into a version of that where he's told to hide that is just like that's not Mon Pa Kent. That's not Superman. But I
I
digress.
when I saw Man of Steel, I had basic human knowledge about Superman. And the main thing I knew and liked about him is that he's from Kansas.
Yeah,
And I'm from Missouri. So we're practically neighbors and best friends.
yeah.
And there is some that's the one thing I really liked about both of these movies, as different as they are, beautiful shots of Kansas. Just
Mm-hmm.
wonderful fields of wheat blowing in the wind. I
Indeed,
love
very Midwest.
Superman as a good Midwestern boy. I'll
Yeah,
take that every single time.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
in this movie in particular, when after Pa Kent's funeral, when Ma Kent comes out and hugs him in the wheat fields, just like wheat up to their knees. Maybe not wheat, grass. I don't know. I I just
I think
love
it's
the
wheat.
imagery of plants. I can't tell you what they are. I just
I'm
know
not a
in
farmer.
my so I just know it's the prairie, and I
Yeah,
just the imagery of the prairie, of the grass or wheat or whatever it is, so high, blowing in the wind, or it looks almost like fluffy, like it's clouds stuck to the ground, but maybe you can eat it because it might be wheat. And it's a beautiful, powerful, soul nourishing image for me, on great display here. We don't follow up with Ma Kent. I hope she's well.
right. Yeah, yeah. Do not get to go back to her this movie, but she is understanding when he is like, "Hey, I need to go. I need to go out into the world and experience it and help people, and stuff like that." And I like that bit about them, that she is not right. She's not trying to contain him. And it's just like, I understand, and I knew this day would come. Right. Um, but good stuff with that. Um, let's
Can I
see. Let's
ask
see.
you,
Yes.
you specifically, as somebody who was also adopted, does that give you any specific personal attachment to Superman? Like, I know your dad's a comic book guy. Did he give you a lot of Superman as a kid? Like, see, Superman's adopted too.
Um,
Any particular attachment there?
Not necessarily. I did grow up knowing that I was adopted, but the parents that raised me, I always just considered them my parents. Um,
Same with him.
yeah, but also like them pointing out characters or stuff that it like was not necessarily a thing, that they or at least that I remember that they went out of their way to do. But yeah, I was not the biggest Superman fan growing up. I was originally in the camp of like, oh, Superman's overpowered and stuff like that, and he does everything right, and stuff like that. And I it wasn't until much later in life that I really became a DC Comics. But like, oh, these guys were cooking over here. I mean, I liked DC Comics in general, right? But I always thought I was a Marvel guy, but no real attachment to
I
Superman
I
because he
I
was
I
adopted.
I just think it's funny that there was an obvious in where you could have been very attached to this character and you're not.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, he's from the state next to mine. He's my favorite now.
That's the Midwestern thing to do. He's my
Yep.
neighbor.
Yep. He's my neighbor.
Yeah.
And he's a good neighbor. I love when he first saves Lois Lane and she asks, "Who are you?" And he just says, "A
State
friend."
Farm. Like a good neighbor. No, the S stands for State Farm.
It's sweet and it's true, and I like that the truth of it, the truth, justice, and the American way of it, make it both an emotional hit and like a cheeky little joke, like wink wink, it's me, Clark Kent. I took my glasses off and I stood up straight.
Yeah. Good
The
stuff.
scene between the two of them on her massive penthouse rooftop garden,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm surprised she has. This is my favorite part of the movie. The two of them are so sweet together.
Yeah.
He's just so aw shucks over her and is that, but is also like kind of enjoying, oh, I never have the upper hand, but now I do. Not in like
Yeah.
a controlling way, but for once in my life, somebody is a crush on me more than I've a crush on them.
Yeah.
You know, one of those rare times, and you're like, oh, I feel very special. Let's play with this. This is fun.
Yeah.
Um, she's the interview she gives him. I love that he just hands her the interview, just flat out says, "So I guess, Miss Lane, that a lot of people have questions about me, and I'd better sit down and answer them now. You can write them down and you can publish them." Maybe this is Clark's, what he gives her in exchange for Perry White giving him the city beat at the newspaper that's supposed to be Lois's beat.
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
like, well, if that's what I inadvertently took from her at the job, not that I took from her, that Perry White gave to me. I've had to stop myself every single time from saying Perry Mason.
Good.
uh, what can I give her in return that's even better? The exclusive interview with Superman and getting to name me Superman. I guess in the continuity of this film, what did he call himself before she calls him Superman?
I don't think he really I mean, maybe he went by his Kryptonian name, right? Because he has he chucks the kryptonite out into the Antarctic. Like that's the first thing he does when he leaves home. He goes to Antarctica or what have you. He goes to the North Pole.
Seemingly went nowhere else. Went to Smallville, the Fortress of Solitude, and then Metropolis. At no point was like, I've never seen the beach.
We just don't. Well, we don't. There's a portion of time where we don't see what he does, and it's a number of years that we don't see.
Yeah,
because
we know
he's in high school.
The Fortress of
Right, we know he's in high school or early on in the film, but we don't know, is he a junior, is he a senior, like is right. But then goes off, and then all of a sudden, new actor, he's older, he's much bigger. Like what has he been up to the past like 4 or 5 years?
Was he working out? Did he actually go to college? Or is this the one lie he's ever told besides telling people he's not Superman? Is that he forged a college degree? Because he's like, I can't tell them I just went to Fortress of Solitude and then my space dad hologram taught me.
Yeah, I used baby Einstein like sleeping stuff, right? Like he could have tested out of it or something like that. I don't even know if that was an option back then, right? But
is there a Superman year one?
Yeah, there's stories like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a DC Elseworlds where Jor-El and Lara, what's his mom's name?
Lara, yeah.
Lara. Uh, where they're like, oh no, Krypton's gonna blow up. We gotta send our baby in a pod out in space. Is there any Elseworlds book where they send him out in space and then it turns out they were wrong and Krypton's fine? And they're like, well, we gotta go get him back now.
Uh, I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past them on that like specific thing. There has
If
been
this
times where he's through one mean or another has gotten to go back to Krypton through time travel
cool.
or something like that. And so yeah, he's gotten to, like meet his parents or stuff like that, and they didn't know it was him because here he is as an adult and there he is as a baby, like right over there. Or his mom is pregnant or something like that. So he's gotten to do that stuff, but I don't know off the top of my head of one where they're like, actually, Jor-El was wrong. Like, and they just sent their kid off into the cosmos, and
Yeah.
now they have to explain that to all their friends at a dinner party, right? Like,
Yeah, they can't say we sent him to boarding school because he is 6 months old. Yeah, if there's a DC Elseworlds where Bruce Wayne died in Crime Alley instead of his parents, and then because of that, his dad becomes Batman and his mom becomes the
yeah,
Joker. If
there's that.
if that exists, why isn't there the comic where Lara and Jor-El have to go get Kal-El back from Ma and Pa Kent? Like, whoops, we take it back. He's ours now. Sorry.
Lost in Space, Adventures in Babysitting, right? Oh man.
We were talking about Clark and Lois, Superman and Lois on the roof.
Yes.
When she asks him, "How big are you?" and then corrects to, "How tall are you?" That's what I mean about this being a low down horny movie, but also that's a great joke for kids. 'Cause like those are synonyms kind of in like
Yeah.
a kid's brain and their understanding, but they're still smart enough to know that that's not what you ask. You don't say big when you mean tall.
Yeah.
Like it can very easily be read on two very effective levels where the kid never realizes anything larger is going on there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and of course, both Lois and a number of other people are hoping some larger things are happening there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
She asks him if he eats. That's a loaded
yeah.
question.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that one, but yeah, then there is the blatant like, what color underwear am I wearing? And then like when he says it, her next one is, do you like that color? Like, was that good?
No,
Did I
not,
pick right?
but
Like,
not, but not what you're doing. She is
right.
so, for as confident and steadfast as a character she is, when she's around Superman, she does
She's
get,
flustered.
oh, yes, but still as strong as she's ever been. She is not lower on the female character power ranking because she occasionally gets flustered around him. It feels very human and very well rounded. And
Yeah.
he is so sweet about it. This movie made me believe in love again.
Yeah, I like that. Even though she is like mixing up her words and seemingly in this days from like being around this hot, muscly guy that just took you flying, and oh my god, you went flying, and he's strong enough to hold you up by one hand, which is not how physics work. But
he holds her up just with like a little bit of fingers, like it's one of those birds that balances with the weight in its feet.
Yeah,
Just
and
does
so
that to her.
She's also like in shock, but like despite all of that, she's still bossing him around when they're like, I'm gonna go change, let's go leave, take me here. But she's mixing up her words when she says that stuff. And so he's just
That's
like,
Clark
all right,
Knight.
Mrs. Lane. Yeah.
Precious.
Yeah. Yeah. So good stuff with that. I like it. It's good fun.
If this movie made me ask myself, if I was saved by a superhero And I felt like me and the superhero had a connection. And then somebody passed me a note saying that superhero wants to see you again. He'll be at your place at 8. Disregarding how he knows where I live. What would I wear? Because I looked at what
Right.
she's
Yeah.
wearing, this like flowy thing that's too much of a nightgown to be formal wear, but too formal to be a nightgown. It's this
Yeah.
thing in between. It's an outfit only for flying, which she doesn't know at the beginning of the night she's going to go do necessarily. So I
Yeah.
don't know how she landed on that. And I've been thinking about that a lot over the last 24 hours. What in my closet would I have picked?
Yeah, it's not lingerie. It's not that
No.
like sexy or scandalous, but it's not so high fashion that you're like, did you think you were going out on a date? But also, why would you wear that? But also, I guess it's comfy, right? You're out on this like rooftop like garden that you
Like a
have that you
personal
can just kind
veranda.
of lounge on, right? Yeah. I don't know, it seems breezy. That's about it, right? It's an interesting choice of outfits. But yeah, what would you wear? What would you be caught in when you're like, let's go flying?
Pinterest inspiration for it.
You now need to specifically go get that outfit ready and keep it ready at all times. Like some people have that like survival backpack with like a flashlight and some food
I just have a
rations and
drawer of
a
all
blanket.
pink underwear just in case, because that seems to be the secret ingredient. That's the lucky
Yeah,
charm.
yeah.
They go flying together, and it's all imagery and score. It's so beautiful. There's hardly any dialogue. And then there's a scene where clearly they'd once intended there to be a song and then backed away. And they're like, no, let's not do a song. Instead, we'll just have Lois's inner monologue be the lyrics of the song. And she's just suddenly thinking in rhyme.
Is this real? Am I dreaming?
I feel like
Am
a
I
girl out
flying?
of school.
Yeah.
You make me feel like a fool. Like real basic elementary level rhymes. I like it in
Keep the
idea, if
mixtape
not
on
in
SoundCloud.
execution.
Yeah.
Yeah, please, somebody remix that. Put that over a beat.
Auto-tune Lois. Yeah, it is kind of a subtle way to be like, oh, she's turned into a school girl. Like she has this schoolgirl like crush where she is just writing this simple poetry in her mind that starts to rhyme and then doesn't, and then she picks it back up or something like that. It's just kind of silly. Which goes along with some of the other things in there, as flirty and as
This is a
sexy
silly
as
movie.
some of their conversation can be, right? Yeah, there is this like, okay, this is just kind of silly though. Thoughts on the scene? Oh, yes, were you going to add something?
I'm going to talk about the beginning of the movie, not the.
Oh, yes, please. Yes, let's go back to the start.
The beginning with the comic book makes you think of how the original Walt Disney Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs opens with them opening a fairy tale book, a big, thick, bejeweled, illuminated manuscript fairy tale book, and reading from that. This also places it in a sense of history and a sense of context, kind of in its world and kind of in our own, which was surprising. Then you have the incredible credits, which feel so influenced by Star Wars, but also do have their own thing going on. I could watch those all the time. I had great fun watching the opening credits, which is a rare thing to accomplish. And then for the next like half hour, we just watch Jor-El do some errands, basically.
Yeah.
So we start with Jor-El in his role as Krypton lawyer, putting Zod and his friends into a mirror that just goes flying through space. I know the Phantom Zone.
Yeah.
I've never seen the Phantom Zone pictured that way. It's strange what I knew from this movie and what I didn't. when they're in the spinning rings, that I knew. Absolutely.
Mhm.
When they're just in a rhombus flying through space like a Windows screensaver, that was new to me. That was a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's like Team Rocket blasting off again.
yeah. It's interesting because you can tell it's a thing they had to think about. How do we deal with this idea of the Phantom Zone, but then also them coming to the conclusion of like, well, we don't really need to name it the Phantom Zone or really explain what it is. We just need to get this idea that they're trapped. That's all, right? And so yeah, they're in this just like floating shape out in space, being like, help us, like us here on the podcast.
Right.
We're in these little boxes here. Help! Forgive us.
Zone.
Forgive us for having a podcast. I'm so sorry.
Help how? How do you get someone out of the Phantom Zone? They yell at baby Superman as he passes by. Like, what do you expect him to do?
I mean, so the way the Phantom Zone works in the comics is that it puts it puts the people in there in this like state of like no, like there's no time. They're basically frozen in time physically, but mentally they can still like think they're still alive. They can do all of that, and it was because Kryptonites, the Kryptonians, did not like believe in like a jail system per se, or they didn't like it and wanted to find a more humane way to do that, but they didn't have a solution yet, and so they just like had this like, well, let's just put them on ice until we figure it out.
Like pause.
Yeah, essentially.
Save to draft.
Yeah, and so yeah, down the road, people can stumble into the Phantom Zone, this like other dimension. It can get too full, and people can break out, right? Or you can open it, and people can go in, stuff like that. So there's all kinds of like jail breaks like that, where it's like, oh no, the Phantom Zone has a bunch of escapees, or like someone's been hiding in the Phantom Zone the entire time. That's why we didn't know where he was.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a guy who comes in covered with tattoos with a map of the Phantom Zone. He's gonna break out his brother.
I'd watch that, right?
Yeah. Every time I see Krypton, it looks like no fun. I've never seen a single incarnation of the Superman mythos where Krypton looks like a nice place to live.
It's interesting, yeah, because the comics sometimes are so focused on what the characters look like and the outfits they're wearing that they're not necessarily focusing on what the actual world looks like, especially if they know it's just gonna explode, right? They have since kind of filled that in, and like they have that look and stuff like that. Or they've explored it more because it was in the comics, but yeah, you just kind of have to do this like, well, if the planet's gonna explode, do we want to like build an entire space civilization set that's only going to be in the first 20 minutes of the movie? Or can we do this like weird ethereal, like almost lighthouse, but in the snow, and it's mostly black and dark, and it's right. And it makes it feel so different than the rest of the movie because of that. It like I'll use the word.
This place wishes it was Kansas.
Right. I'll use the word space opera, or the word space opera, but I really mean operatic in like it feels like it's gonna be this grand sweeping story across galaxies, across planets and all of this stuff. And I guess you could argue it kind of is, but it just feels very different than when you get to Earth, and it's not the same kind of operatic. It's not the same kind of like opera like grand scale that the first like 20 minutes of the film would lead you to believe. But it's still fun
So
though.
first Jor-El is space lawyer, and he condemns Zod and his pals to the Phantom Zone. Then he's space scientist. He's got so many jobs apparently. And he's talking to the rest of the Council of Krypton, and he's like, this sun's gonna crash into us or whatever. And they're like, no, and don't talk about it again, and please leave. It's just normally a movie would have one of those two. Here we have to have both. The movie has to start front loaded with a half hour of just Marlon Brando business. Just
Yeah.
your dad going about his day. He does two separate, seemingly unrelated things. Then they put him in a star and he has to leave.
Right, yeah. And then he gets taught the theory of relativity.
The pacing, it takes like 25 minutes to see like baby Kal-El. It takes another like half an hour beyond that to see the brief glimpse of Superman in his costume flying out of the Fortress of Solitude. It's like at the 55-minute mark where he actually rips his shirt open. You see the S. He goes and he saves Lois. Then everything takes so long. This movie is in linear time, which is itself not a flaw, but it is something I think modern movies don't do as much.
They would start it in media res.
Right. In media res, you have the gut punch flashback. That's how we do it nowadays, which isn't good or bad. But if you have been acclimated to it, going back to something like this, where you keep checking your watch, you're having a fine time,
yeah.
but you're like, weird that we're not farther along yet. Weird that we're still in Kansas. Beautiful, beautiful Kansas. But you want to be in Metropolis with the big spinning planet on top of the Daily Planet building and Jimmy Olsen snapping photos. You want that. You want the candy-colored Technicolor Superman flying around the city, thwarting bad guys who are wearing like black and white striped shirts and little masks. You want that. And it takes a long time to get there, and what you get is very good. And then you're like, Lex Luthor is going to blow open the San Andreas Fault, and then you're like in a desert, which is a lot less fun to look at.
Yeah. I love all the models and stuff they use though when they flood.
Yes, that is rad.
Yeah, all that stuff is just some great shots. A great way to mix those shots too, from being there in the actual location, if they did that, or if it was still built on a set, but to have the like different sizes, like, oh, there's obviously people right there. And then like, oh, here's this giant rush of water that you can tell it's like, okay, this is a model, but it's so fun. Yeah, I like that. Jimmy is very Jimmy. He's also like he's very much an intern in this, right? That is like, they also kind of don't really pay attention to him other than like, hey, go get my coffee. And then he's a jokester and is like, hey, this guy wants coffee, right? Make mine this, right? Like he's trying to establish himself here. Yeah. Like I like that.
The newsroom stuff is great.
Yeah.
There's wonderful one-shots navigating around that office. I was going to say it feels real, but what I mean is that it feels like other newspaper offices I've seen in movies.
Yeah.
It feels real to at least a movie idea of realism, which just sort of further puts the wildness of candy-colored Superman out there in comparison to it. I wish we got to see a little bit more of it, a little bit more of them on the job, getting to know other characters around that office, because I know they exist and I know they're in other versions. They're going to be in the James Gunn version. They're just not here.
Mm-hmm.
I want a little more of why Superman is a reporter over anything else. He does have a dedication to truth. Journalism should reflect the truth. That's that's there. But when you look at Daredevil, for instance, and you learn about just the basics of his backstory, something about him becoming a lawyer seems like a given. He's this disenfranchised kid, grew up on the outskirts of society, grew up in a poor neighborhood, and then he becomes this like pro bono lawyer taking on, cases of the everyman. There's a very neat line there. There's not quite as neat of a line here. Uh, they don't do enough to flesh out the obvious creation of we need Superman to be saving people, so he has to be near crime scenes. So I guess if he's a reporter, he's just always there. Like, you can see how writerly it is.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Even if he like explains of like, oh, I just want to help people, and a good way to help people is to inform them, right? Like even if he just has a line like that, to keep them informed so they know what's going on in their community, so that they can stay away from people who actually mean them harm.
I mean, if there was an example in his past, if we saw him back in Smallville, if he was on the school paper instead of being the equipment manager for the football team, or if it wasn't heart disease that got Pa Kent, if it was some sort of a local disaster that he wasn't informed about.
Right. Yeah.
Something like that. The news didn't get to him in time of the bridge is out. He went over the bridge. I don't know what it would be, but you could make something there that gives him the specific need to, this is what my career must be. In addition to anything I do with my powers, when I'm not using my powers, when I'm trying to live an everyday normal life, even as some sort of cover, I am specifically called to this. I just wish for a little bit more on the bone there.
Yeah.
Because I think we do get it with Lois. Lois really seems to embody her profession.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that's a great thought there. He needs to
I'd love a
strengthen that
Superman
a little bit.
story that's I'd love a Superman story that's all journalism, and he's just too strong sometimes. Like, he doesn't even really he's never puts on the cape. Just see him like accidentally rip a door off its hinges or something, but mostly it's journalists.
I know they have some comics out there that are more focused on Lois getting a story and stuff like that. There are Superman stories that do focus more on him chasing down a story and writing that and putting out an expose, or there's been some where he's gone undercover to get that story and stuff like that. But
then he has to be so many layers deep. He has to be Superman and Clark Kent and Kal-El and whatever his undercover persona is.
Yeah. And the stuff is certainly in there, but you're right. They often do have to balance that with like, okay, but it's also Superman, so he needs to punch something, right? He needs to get in a fight. We need to get some action on this comic that is literally titled Action Comics. Right?
True.
Yeah.
Not dry procedural comics.
Journalistic comics.
Not craftsmanship and trade work comics.
Yeah, but that stuff is certainly out there, but it is more mixed in with stuff, I feel like. But how do you feel about Superman time traveling?
Oh, this is a thing I knew was in this. This was on the list of things I knew about this film. He goes around the Earth. He goes back in time. He saves Lois when perhaps he shouldn't have. And Space Marlon Brando does tell him, you were forbidden to interfere in Earth's history. But it's like, why? Says who? What are you going to do about it if he does?
Damn. You're dead, Dad. You can't do anything.
You're
you watch
dead.
your mouth with me, young man.
Kent is dead. I don't have to listen to anybody. I can turn back time if I want.
I didn't even go to college.
Midnight, need ice cream.
Yeah, like I don't necessarily like Superman with the ability to time travel. I can see how you get there, and I think it can make sense. but I don't know. I just I don't prefer it. But also
Mhm.
I understand it, right? Like here is someone that he has started to care about, and I think can really start to see himself having a relationship with. I do wish the movie kind of went more into that, but this movie already has so much that right, like they did the best they could with what they had, and I think it works. I think it especially works because Lois's death scene is actually like really
Yes.
good. Like it
Yes.
is claustrophobic as the dirt is like flowing into her car and tipping over, and she's being like sucked into this like sinkhole of the like the fault that's cracking. It's scary stuff. Um and yeah, when he gets there too late, he is just like yeah,
Mhm.
like you hear him scream and he gets upset.
Yes, that is a very raw moment that is, unusual in this film and in many other similar films.
Yeah. But I think that is good to see. Like I think it is a good side of Superman to see that he gets emotional. He has attachments. He can love just like everyone else. Um, and I think that lends to both what makes him so great and the tragedy of Superman and his many powers. We already the example in this movie is the like you can't be in two places at once here.
Mm.
Also with the like super hearing and stuff like that, like he can hear other people in trouble and he has to make a decision of who he will help,
Yes.
right? So he has to
Yes.
let someone get hurt when he decides to go over here and do that stuff, right? Maybe he can use his super speed and get a number of people, but he literally cannot be everywhere at once.
Mm.
That's
Mhm.
the thing. And so yeah, when he has people that he starts to care about and they are in danger and he can't be there, like that is part of what makes his story so affecting and his character so like, oh man, like he actually has to
Yeah.
decide the fates of other people in a weird way that you don't often think about, and how much that might weigh on him
Mm.
there. And we see this moment here where it has obviously like where it has obviously weighed on him enough where he's like, I will literally turn back time to save you.
Yes.
Um,
And the scene with him and Miss Tessmacher where Lex says he's gonna set off these 2 bombs, one in the San Andreas Fault and one arbitrarily in Hackensack, New Jersey. And she says, "My mom lives in Hackensack." And he's like, too bad.
yeah,
Say goodbye to your mom." And she asks Superman to go save her, and she's like, "I know you don't tell lies. So if you tell me this, I know you're going to do it." And he's like, "I can't say no to this woman."
right,
He's
yeah,
too He's too nice, and she is for such a shallow character as she is throughout the movie. I say this not as a reflection of Miss Tessmacher the person, just like the role she serves in the story is big time bimbo eye candy, which
right,
I
yeah.
say with love. She's very good at being big time bimbo eye candy, but it's heartbreaking. She's so sincere with the pain that she feels that her mom's in danger and she's
Yeah,
gotten caught up in all of this and she's like, "I never wanted this. I just don't know how to do anything else."
yeah. Even the self reflection of having Superman in her arms and wanting to kiss him before, and just this, like he asks, like, "Why did you do that?" And she's just like, "The good guys never go for me." Like
No,
she has,
what she says is, "I did," because she kisses him, but while he still has the kryptonite pendant on before he's back at full power, because she
right.
knows as soon as she takes it off,
He's
he's
gone.
up and away. And she says, "I didn't think you'd let me later," which is such a heartbreaking, pitiful little line. You do feel for Miss
Yes. Yeah.
Tessmacher.
Yeah, that's like that's what I'm trying to get at. It's this really vulnerable moment for
Yes.
her, even though she's taking advantage of him. Right?
Mhm,
It
mhm.
is an emotionally vulnerable moment where she realizes I might be on the wrong path. I got mixed up with some bad people. I
Yes.
don't think I will truly have a chance to get in good with you or to be in a romantic relationship with you. I can't have that. Right.
Mhm.
So forgive me this one small,
Yes, this indiscretion, I need a
yeah,
taste of a different life, the life I could have
yes,
had, the life I would
yes,
prefer. Um, and this isn't a character who you would expect to be that vulnerable.
yeah, because she's not evil. She's
No,
right. She's just being bossed around by Lex Luthor
she's
here, and I think this is a good reminder of that.
she feels very much like those two girlfriends that Two-Face and the Riddler have in Batman Forever. She fulfills a similar role, and you
Yeah,
never get anything like that out of them.
yeah.
Sugar and Spice, were those their names?
I don't remember at all. Um, but yeah, good. Like there's like surprising moments in there of like, oh, that's
Yes.
a great character moment, or a good line, or a good little small scene. That I think really help just meld everything together despite its flaws.
Yes.
So there you
As
go.
we
I don't
near
know
the
if I
end of
have
our discussion, I've
much else. Yeah.
I've one question for you.
Yes.
Superman in the 90s died and came back, and he had a black suit and a mullet.
Uh-huh.
We've seen that. That's what happened in Justice League, mostly in the Snyder cut of Justice League. He comes back and he has the black suit, but his hair is the same. We've never gotten that mullet on the screen. And I think we may finally be entering the time when we can see that mullet on the big screen. Mullets are kind of back. A newer, modern form of mullet, not the same as he would have had back then, but, and it may be treading too worn of ground for Superman to die and come back to life, but I think that mullet could see the light of day on the big screens in the next 10 years. What do you think?
Yeah. I think at the very
Okay,
least as a
good.
joke. You know how sometimes like the
Yes,
superhero stuff
yes,
where they're like picking an outfit to wear and they bring one on that looks like their costume or something like
yes,
that. Like maybe we
yes.
get a quick flash of like this is what Superman looked like in high school, and he has the mullet on and
Yeah,
like a tight
do
black
it.
t-shirt, right? Like it could be something like that. I don't know. Like if there is success with the Batman being its own separate thing from James Gunn's
Yeah.
universe, I would like to see Elseworld versions, and I would love to see like a late 80s, early 90s Superman where he's in the mullet, like he has that look. I think stuff like that would be fun. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I could see at the very least some kind of Easter egg or nod to
Yes.
it. I think would be fun.
I I bet that's popular at conventions nowadays. People are like, "I already have the haircut. Might as well be Black Suit Superman from the early 90s."
I mean, honestly, don't bring the mullet back, but bring the mullet back for
No, there
Superman.
what there's a modified mullet. It's not precisely the same.
Oh,
It's
out
a
here in
little more
Oklahoma,
refined.
it is still
What?
full on mullet often.
That well, use it for good. Use it for a Superman costume. See, I am flypaper for weird bits of superhero ephemera, like the time Superman came back from the dead with a mullet,
Yeah,
or the Kevin Smith giant spider story. I don't
God,
know
they they
themes.
they
I
put
don't
that
know
in the
lore,
cartoon in
but I know this stuff.
in the Superman animated cartoon, there is an episode where he fights a giant mechanical spider, and there's a local
Mechanical.
bystander that looks exactly like Kevin Smith, has the same facial hair and the big trench coat and stuff, and he's just like, mechanical spider. That's the dumbest thing I ever saw. It's so good. It's so great. Shout out to Wild Wild West, the Superman villain that never was.
Shout out to it.
Yeah. Any other kind of final thoughts on Superman? Are you now interested in checking out the other Superman movies here with
At
Richard
some point,
Donner?
I'll watch the Zod one. I'd love to see a Zod in his original form with the satin shirt and the chest hair. Yeah, but I don't know if I'll ever get to 3 and 4.
Yeah. I think the most significant one out of 3 is the jokes that you get from movies like Office Space, where it's like, oh, this is just the plot of Superman 3, right? Yeah, I don't know. I have a good time with these. I think it's 3 and 4. You also get the one where he quits being Superman or does the like dark version of Superman, which is just kind of funny
no
to
more.
see. Yeah, when you see him with like the 5 o'clock shadow at the bar drinking, is just kind of funny to see, right? I don't know. Good stuff. Good stuff. This one, I had a blast. I'm glad we got to watch this before we saw the new one. So, okay. Bingo. I can now pull up our bingo sheets on screen in a new way than I have before. I don't even have to have the website up to show them on screen, but I do have to actually open up for me to make changes. Okay, so bingo. Here we go. Do we have anything here? I don't know if.
Do you also have this? No, you don't.
I don't think I have anything.
I can get actor playing themselves. When Lois is giving Clark the whirlwind tour of Daily Planet, they walk by another person who works for the newspaper coming in through the revolving doors. That is actual film critic Rex Reed.
Okay. Interesting.
That's a weird little cameo where that guy is himself addressed by name.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything. The closest thing I would have been able to get is villain with a pet, but Lex doesn't really have a pet unless you count Otis as the pet.
I have a pet Otis. Did we get a cow out in Smallville specifically?
Oh, did we? I don't think we did, actually.
Yeah. Not a lot of animals out there. Just wheat.
Yeah. Let's see. No sassy grandparents. There was no real like comedy with
No.
With Mom, Pa Kent even.
Not grandparents yet.
Yeah. I think that's it for me. I got nothing.
I got one. Thanks, Rex Reed.
There you go. Thanks, Rex Reed. Indeed. All right. Melissa, let's get to some recommendations here. For people who enjoyed this, what else might they like?
Visit the Midwest. Come see our fields of wheat. Come see our big, nice boys.
Yes. Yeah.
So we changed this last minute, and I only watched this movie last night, so I didn't have time to think of a lot of recommendations. And a lot of the recommendations are fairly obvious. Have you considered watching anything else with Superman in it?
Right? Don't skip out on the Brandon Routh one. It's actually a pretty decent.
Everything I hear about it, I've never seen it. Everything I hear about it, I have trouble configuring in my head into one cohesive film. So I have to watch it at one point just to make all of these things I've heard make sense.
It's one that at the time was not super received well. It was a longer movie and is a little bit slower, but
good to know.
Man, he still also just embodies that character in a great way. They of course make references to how airplanes are still statistically speaking the safest way to travel. And
that's
then
nice.
Brandon Routh got to reprise his role as Superman in a bunch of the Arrowverse shows, especially when they go to like alternate dimensions and stuff like that. They have him playing Superman because he's also in there as another character. He's right. In there as the he's in there as the Atom. which in the show they kind of made a mix between Ant-Man and Iron Man, where he can get small or big, but he has like the suit that does all of that. But yeah, go check out that. Go watch the animated cartoon, right?
I have one recommendation. On episode 231 of the review show, we watched Megamind. Megamind is a DreamWorks animated film from 2010 about basically what if a Superman happened, but also they sent another alien baby from that same planet, but he didn't land on Earth with a loving family. He landed in a prison and he was raised by criminals and he grew up to become a supervillain. And then when he actually does destroy his superhero nemesis, he's like, great, now what? I have no purpose in life. Now that he's dead, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm depressed. So to try and perk up his life again, he takes some local Jimmy Olsen-esque nobody and tries to make him into a new superhero so that he can have something to fight. And Megamind puts on the guise of Marlon Brando's space dad to come to this guy like, I'm your space dad. You've had powers all along. You gotta be a superhero.
Good
I
call.
love Megamind.
Good call. Good call.
That's all.
Well, I have a few recommendations here. I picked up some actual comics from my bookshelf.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the start of John Byrne's run on Superman. He initially did a 6-issue run called The Man of Steel. And it was after Crisis on Infinite Earths, which took all this complicated multiverse continuity, all that stuff, and tried to simplify the DC Comics continuity. The Man of Steel served as the new origin story of the Man of Steel. But then he went on to continue writing it for a long, long time, up through the death of Superman, which we mentioned previously. This was the run of Superman that made me fall in love with the character. Before this, like I had said, wasn't really the biggest fan of Superman in general. But getting to see the different aspects of the character, what he is truly like, getting to see what his weaknesses actually are in this run, I think they do some really, really good stuff. I think Byrne is a part of it, but I have a storyline back there called Superman Exile that I had read right about the same time that the Man of Steel movie came out. And that story focuses on what happens when Superman does kill someone. How do you actually address that? He is brought to another universe where in that universe Zod took over and literally killed everyone. And like their last hope was to go get Superman from this universe and bring him out there to stop him. And he does, and he says like, hey, normally I would pass you on to whatever authorities are here on this planet, but you literally killed them all, which now makes me your judge, jury, and executioner. So I'm condemning you to death. I'm going to kill you. And he does. And then when he comes back, he has to deal with this weight of like, I just killed someone. That's a line that I don't cross. How do I now deal with that back home where I still need to uphold that, that rule here? So I thought they dealt with that in a really, really nice way. It's not that Superman can't kill, but it's what story comes afterwards when he has to deal with that fallout. So that whole run that John Byrne is a part of through many, many years of Superman is fantastic. Highly recommend going to check it out. I don't remember how much. Well, I was about to say how much we've read of Mark Waid, but Mark Waid, kind of early 2000s, I think 2010s, did an updated Superman origin story, also called The Man of Steel. Kind of works in conjunction with this one. It's not necessarily retconning much, but is modernizing it. I would go recommend Mark Waid's Man of Steel. Yes, I think I know what you're about to say.
Speaking of Mark Waid, I forgot to mention Irredeemable. Is that what you have? There he is.
Irredeemable. I have volume 1 and 2 here.
We have read all of Irredeemable. We did this back in late 2020, so you can find our first discussion on the series on episode 125 of the review show. These are comics about the Plutonian, who is a Superman analog in this world of other superheroes on a Justice League type team. He's nearly omnipotent. He's incredibly strong. He's constantly working. He's constantly saving people. He's so good and he's so nice. And it's just about when the pressure gets to him of how he cannot take a second off. And if he does, or if he picks the wrong thing, he can never do enough.
Yeah.
It is that pressure that breaks him, and he kind of loses it and starts hunting down.
He goes bad.
He hunts down everybody. He kills millions and millions of people, and all the other people on the superhero team are like, oh no.
Yeah.
We can't stop him. He's got every power in the book. We never planned for this. We never thought the Plutonian would go bad. He's the best of all of us. How do we stand against this? How do we survive? There's an element of like survival horror to the early stages of these books that is really interesting.
Yes.
And you just go down the rabbit hole of what happened to this guy? Why did he do this? And now that he has done it, how do we stop him?
Yes. I will say, if that also turns you off of like, ooh, that sounds dark, I don't know if I want to read like a Superman Goes Bad story. I will say the ending is incredibly hopeful. And it kind of brings it back full circle to Superman in an interesting way.
And it's all very character driven and set in its own world. Like the thing that has kept me from watching like The Boys or something, other quote unquote dark superhero stories, is the amount of like satire and like holding a mirror up to current politics and stuff like that. Irredeemable is very self-contained. If that's something you're really not in the mood for, good, because Irredeemable doesn't have it.
Yeah. I would also recommend Invincible. This is another one that is the like hyper violent superhero story. A lot of people will mistake it, because of the hyper violence for not being or just for being another one of these, like, it's dark, it's cynical, like stuff like that. It's really not. It is less about it's in the way that Irredeemable is a story about what happens when Superman goes bad. Irredeemable is, what about Superboy? What happens when his dad goes bad? So it is more of a really good Superboy story. And there is plenty of violence and hope and all kinds of crazy intergalactic wars. There is some darker stuff. It's certainly not without that. But it manages to balance all of that really, really well. I would highly recommend that one as well. Melissa, would you mind looking up what episode we talked about Black Hammer on?
Yes, Black Hammer, another favorite of the dark, not dark, just like mature and
more of a mystery
stories. Yes, about superhero allegory characters where it's like, here's basically a Superman, basically a Shazam, basically a Martian Manhunter, etc. We talked about the first 2 volumes of Jeff Lemire's Black Hammer on episode 106.
Yes. I have that
I
one
can
too.
hold these up. I'm going to get mine.
Oh, okay. I was about to go get mine as well. I have the library edition.
I
Big,
want
big
the
old
fancy edition.
thick
I just have
hardcover.
volumes 1 and 2. See,
Perfect.
I
Yeah.
really don't own comics the way Kyle owns comics, but I own these.
Yeah. These ones are neat. This is about a number of superheroes who, on a fated day, have to fight this villain that in the final moments, they all get transported to this mysterious dimension. They don't know anything about it. They've never been there before, and there's seemingly no way to escape it. It is less so a full dimension, but kind of the constraints of a town that they are in here.
Yes, and they're sort of unstuck in time there, and they're trapped, and there's like a force field where they can't leave.
Right.
But it's not so clear as, oh, a supervillain has trapped us in a force field.
Right.
It's got this sort of Twilight Zone mystery to it of, is this purgatory? Is this hell?
Yeah. Yeah. There have been some great Superman comics in general over recent years. Brian Michael Bendis has written a number of them. The current runs that are happening now seem to be pretty good too. Yeah, there's some really, really good stuff. You mentioned Megamind, and it has this story about like, what if Superman landed somewhere else? Hey, there's Superman Red Sun, in which he lands in communist Russia, and what happens if he landed somewhere else? With that could be an interesting one to check out as well.
I wish there was a Superman for every country. We just got all like 206 of them. What's Canadian Superman like? Did he grow up to become Jeff Lemire? We don't know.
I would also go check out the more recent Superman and Lois live action show. Fantastic stuff. I really, really enjoyed that. There's only like 3 or 4 seasons of it. Yes.
When you go to HBO Max and type in Superman, that's what shows up first before the 1978 Superman the movie.
I wonder if there's a recency bias with that, if that is the most recent thing that came out that has Superman there. But
I don't know. Maybe it's the most broadly searched for across all demographics. Maybe not the most people, but the widest variety of people want to watch Superman and Lois.
Because it's kind of real loosely tied into the like Arrowverse stuff, but then it's not, and they just do their own thing. So if you like are scared of all the Arrowverse stuff, or if you didn't like that, and so you haven't checked out the Superman and Lois show, highly recommend that one. It is filmed differently than most of the other the other Arrowverse stuff as well. It has a more prestige look than the rest of the Arrowverse stuff did, which just has like a daytime television show look. I wouldn't describe it as the like higher end premium prestige show, but it's more along those lines in terms of how it looks. If you want something that's also super lighthearted and fun that is in the Arrowverse stuff, go check out Supergirl. That show is a lot of fun too. If you're interested in the upcoming Supergirl movie, Tom King has a graphic novel out that they are adapting for that movie, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. That is an interesting one that you can check out. I would recommend that as well. The art in that book by itself is worth the admission price. Bilquis Everly, I think, is the artist's name. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But Yeah, fantastic art there. So
I
good
wasn't
stuff.
listening. I was Googling if we could watch that Swamp Thing show.
I
We
don't
can
think
buy
you
it.
really can. Yeah.
It's not like streaming. You have to buy it for $2 an episode from like Fandango at home.
It's so dumb that you can't watch that show, because that's one of the only like live action DC shows I haven't seen of the like more modern stuff. Um, yeah, it's a bummer. But
We'll
anyways,
get there.
those are my recommendations. So good stuff with all of that. Let's talk about what we're gonna do for this next episode then.
Yes. Kyle, would you like to introduce the next episode?
Yeah. So, in preparation of another movie, we are going to watch a racing movie. I'm a big F1 fan. Melissa, you have recently gotten into it. I have a whole episode where I kind of explain Formula One to Melissa over on the Captain's Log. I believe it's literally titled Kyle Explains Formula One. I have a whole big presentation.
It was very helpful for myself, and I imagine for other newcomers who just want to learn a sport, and F1 seems easy enough to get your hand around because it's only 20 guys.
Right? Yeah. It's just a race. A race is simple enough to understand, right? Fastest one
It's
wins.
20 guys and they go in a circle. You can do that. I can do that.
But yeah, the F1 movie is coming out in like a month. At the end of this month, in a couple weeks. Yeah. So we wanted to watch some kind of racing movie or show. And let me pull up the Discord so I have the little description here of all of this. So I pitched a number of things to Melissa behind the scenes here, but I think we're gonna go with something that's not actually Formula One related. However, the weekend that is coming up, that like right after we record this, the 24 hours of Le Mans is happening this weekend. It is a 24-hour endurance race. There's multiple drivers on the same teams that swap out. I honestly don't know much about Le Mans besides that and hearing its name and stuff like that. But we are going to watch the movie entitled Le Mans. This is starring Steve McQueen. And it's about a fictional 24 hours of Le Mans race in 1971. A lot of this was filmed on location on that track. And they used like actual footage of the previous year's actual race in the movie. But it's Steve McQueen. When you think of racing movies, like he is synonymous with
yes.
that. Lightning McQueen from Cars is named after him, right? Like
the perfect example.
Yeah.
He is our most drivingest movie star. So when you provided me with a list of various racing movies, I thought this seems like an important piece of historical context. We should watch this before we watch Rush or something.
Yeah.
There was also a recent video essay by my favoriteest guy, Patrick H. Willems, a film essayist on YouTube, talking about how they filmed Le Mans and how it might be the best filming of a race that's ever been put to the screen.
That's awesome. So yeah, I'm excited to check this out. I have not watched it. I have really not watched many racing movies or stuff like that. So this will be a new one for me. I'm super excited. Le Mans. You should be able to rent this on Amazon or Apple or wherever. Yeah, I don't think it's streaming per se, but check it out. I also don't think I've seen a Steve McQueen movie, so that'll be a first for me. Maybe I have, but I don't know.
I've seen The Great Escape. And I know I'm going to tell a story about Bullet when
Okay.
we talk next time.
Okay. I'm excited. But yeah, we will be watching Le Mans. Let's wrap things up right there. Melissa, I'm tossing it back over your way. Where can people send their scoops to get in contact with you?
You can write to me, email me at yourhostmelissa@gmail.com. Tell me if your underwear is pink or not.
Or what outfit you would wear
Yes,
to go flying.
Send me your My Date with Superman mood board. Get ready with me. Hashtag get ready with me, date with Superman.
Indeed. If you guys want to find me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer. And if you guys would like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at thewhatnauts.com on Blue Sky. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. If you're watching this on YouTube, go check out more of our videos over that way on that side of the screen. That would help us out a ton. But yeah, thanks for checking this one out. This has been number 319 of the Whatnauts review show. We will see you all later. Bye.
Bye.